story of me getting into even thinking about doing an Ironman or even knowing what an Ironman is kind of funny. You know, it's kind of random. I was in this group sessions, doing these group trainings, and people were talking about triathlons. There's different distances, sprints, Olympics, and the word Ironman came up, and I was like, what is that? And when they said to me, it's a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike, and then a marathon run, I was absolutely appalled. I was like disgusted by how somebody could want to do that, or how someone could even physically or mentally even complete that. So that was the first introduction to what an Ironman was, and in reality it was the first hint of when I kind of got the realization of how difficult it would be. And then over the next few weeks, few months, this was about 2020, early 2021, I was like, one day, if I put this all together and I really dedicated myself, I think one day that I could do it. And that's what the initial kind of spark was that actually held with me through all these years. My journey to Ironman Arizona started in very early 2021. I joined a triathlon group locally, and I got all the basic equipment with a wetsuit, a bike, and some running shoes, and my journey began. And I know that you don't want to do too much too fast, right? You don't want to get overuse injuries and etc. So I wanted to take it slow. So I first started with a sprint triathlon in around mid-2021. It was in Long Beach, California. I signed up for the Bay Shore Sprint, and I completed that in about an hour and 16 minutes. Super excited, and it was my first introductory lesson experience to what is triathlon. It's one of the shortest triathlons that they offer, and it was a great experience for me because it really implanted that addiction bug in my blood, and it kind of reaffirmed that I can do this and I can take this to other levels. So after that race, I gained a little confidence, and I signed up then for December 2021 for the La Quinta half Ironman. That's quite a big jump to go from a sprint to a half Ironman, but like I said, I'd put in a lot of work, and I'd been regularly attending these, not camps, but these sessions with the local groups, the local triathlon groups. And so I had built up my endurance, and I was like, we're gonna do this. I think I can do it. We signed up, and on December, I think it was December 5th of 2021, we came prepared, at least we thought we were prepared at the time, and we did a half Ironman, which is 70.3 total miles. It's a 1.2 mile swim into a 56 mile bike, and then a half marathon, 13.1 mile run. And that day was the single hardest day that I think I've ever experienced. The deepest pain cave, the biggest punch in the teeth, really, that woke me up to what a real triathlon can do to you, and how much it can really break you down, how much it can really play with your mind. The time frame for the completion jumped up hours of time. The duration, the intensity was magnified, and it really beat me up physically and mentally. And so when I completed that race in, I think it was about 6 hours and 53 minutes and some change, it was a big eye-opener that I really needed more work, and I really needed to commit more time and effort if I was gonna ever one day do a full Ironman. So after that end of 2021, I knew that I needed to get my running better. I entered in a couple half marathons, and then eventually I entered into a full marathon. I did 2 half marathons, the San Diego half marathon, then I did the OC half marathon, and my goal was to get those both under 2 hours, which eventually we did. Then I entered into 2 full marathons, the LA marathon, and then the CIM Sacramento marathon, and my goal was to get that under 4 hours, and we eventually were able to accomplish that goal. And after that, it was time to move on to the Big Daddy, and that was a full Ironman. Tempe, Arizona, we're finally on the way. Let's go. I thought about my schedule, I talked to my family because I knew this would be a group effort, and we decided to circle the calendar and basically hone down and target November 19th, 2023 for Ironman, Arizona. So we got there on a Friday. I did the athlete check-in. I got my bracelet, I got my cap for the swim, and I was able to kind of walk around the village. That day we also did the practice swim. So I was able to get my wetsuit on, I was able to get in the actual water of the actual course so I could feel the water temperature. And I knew kind of where the entrance would be and where the exit would be. So I was just gaining as much information as I could that day. And then the next day, which was Saturday, obviously we had a nice family dinner together where we did a whole bunch of carbo loading and basically we're saying our last prayers, right, before this biggest event, which was on Sunday morning. Sunday morning we woke up on race day. It was at 4:15 a.m. and I was already excited. Got out of bed right away and I went ahead and got all my belongings together, had a little bit of food to eat. So we met up with my parents and my wife. We walked down, got in the car, we drove down to the start line, and that was kind of like our home base in the village, where I just kind of did some ancillary checks, made sure the bike was good, pumped up my tires, made sure my bags were all in the correct location, and then I gave my last hugs and kisses, and then I went into the swimming corral. The pros, I think, started around 6:50, and then they let 5 people jump in the water every 5 seconds. So by the time it made it back to me, I think I jumped in the water about 7:10, 7:15 a.m. and we started the swim. The water in the swim was about 65 degrees. It was a 1-loop course, and I can remember swimming out in the very, very beginning, just trying to pretend I was just going for another swim. So I rounded that first buoy and I went immediately eastward right into the sun. And I couldn't see anything. Like, the sun was so blinding that I really couldn't sight straight. I was sighting to the left, I was sighting to the right, because straight was just too stressful and taxing on my eyes. I had sunspots. Like, when I would close my eyes and look back in the light, I'd have the sunspots, so I knew it wasn't even good for me. And when I got about 100 yards from the finishing dock, my left lower leg just cramped so hard. And I was just like, I don't have time for this. Like, I just gotta power through it. So we just powered through this, and by the time I was able to get to the finishing dock, it kind of released a little bit. I was able to walk up and remove my cap and goggles, look down, hit my lap time, and I came in around 1 hour and 24 minutes-ish, which is about 5 minutes faster than I thought I was gonna be. So we got into transition. It was a big circling loop. I got off all my swim garb, got the wetsuit off. So I was brushing all this grass off my legs, and I was trying to apply some sunscreen. So it was taking time. It was like tick, 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 and it was 5 minutes, and then it was 10 minutes. I finally made it out of the changing tent, got to my bike. We rolled out through the bike exit to get onto over the mountain line is when you can actually get on your bike. And I hit my lap, and I think my transition for T1 was around 15 minutes, which was a little longer than I wanted, but it was what it was. So then at this time we started the bike. So we got on the bike, and I was going so much faster than I thought I would be going. The bike was a 3-loop course, so I had a tailwind on the way out. It was about 18 miles, and then you turn around, you do 18 miles back, and on the way back it was slightly downhill, and you had a headwind. But the headwind didn't really slow me down because it was countered by being downhill. So I was able to maintain pretty good pace on the way out with the tailwind, and then I was on the turnaround to come back. I was able to maintain a pretty good pace because even though I had a headwind, it was downhill. So I was pretty satisfied on how the loops were going. You know, after the first loop, after the second loop, after the third loop, the pace was pretty good. My plan was to go pee once. I ended up having to go pee 3 times because I think I was just so nervous and I was drinking so much. I stopped at mile 56 at my special needs bag and I ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And at the end of the full race, at the end of the full bike, I came in around, I think it was 6 hours and 28 minutes for the bike completion. And I got off the bike, went into transition 2, and this was much quicker. So we got onto the run, and I felt really good. You know, for that first 10 miles of that run, our plan was to stick in zone 2 of my heart rate, which is 143 to 150 beats, and just sit pretty. So fair enough, boom, mile 14 comes around and left leg cramps. I get a double cramp, my quad and my calf. I had to pull off the course. I had to stop for a moment, reached in my pocket. I pulled out a gram of sodium, popped that. I was stretching it out for a second. So within about 1 minute, the cramps resolved and I went right back on the course. And at this time, the day began to turn to night. So I was like, all right, the cramp's behind us. I knew that if I could just hold on, we could finish this last 15K out. At that moment, I became extremely hungry. And I knew the hunger was so strong that do I stick with my plan or do I ditch it? And I had to kind of weigh the pros and cons real quick, and I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna just go for this. So I switched to pretzels, salted chips, and Coca-Cola at mile 22, 23. And I just hit that back every single aid station from mile 22 to the end at 26.2 and just prayed that my stomach would tolerate it. And thankfully it did. I was very satiated, I felt much better, I had an extra little boost. I had no stomach IBS issues, and I just hung on for dear life. I think one of the main reasons for me doing this was to show that I'm not really sitting here just pointing fingers and telling these patients like, this is your injury, this is your recovery time, this is the rehab you're gonna have to do. I'm not just sitting here pointing fingers. They're like, I'm involved with you. I'm involved with your struggles. I am there with you doing similar things. I'm gonna put myself through hell because I know you're putting yourself through hell and the effort you're putting into your recovery is 110%, and I wanna do that with you. And I wanna show in my way that things can be done if you really want them to be done, and that nobody should tell you that it can't be done. And the punchline is, even when it's yourself, because a lot of patients are blocked by no one else than themselves. When self-doubt comes in, that's the key. You have to believe that you can return to your sport, to your function, to your hobby. And I wanted to show that as their doctor, that we can do it. that we can do it together, that no one can tell all of us that we can't do it, and that we all can kind of believe in ourselves to make a great accomplishment. So that was the reason why I wanted to do this. I rounded down toward the end. I saw some of my camera crew. I was super happy to see them toward the end. And right when I reached the red carpet, I saw my stepdad. He handed me the banner, my business banner. I grabbed the business banner, I put it up, held it really high over my head, and I basically went as fast as I felt like I was doing a run, but it was more like a jog trot through that Ironman finish line with a smile, yell, excitement, facial expression, with the flag hiding, the flag held up really high over my head. And we crossed through that finish line at 12 hours, 38 minutes, and some change.
You are an Ironman. Eric Sickner, you are an Ironman here. Home Desert, California.
I was overwhelmed at the feeling of the completion of the race. It was so miraculous of what I didn't believe that I could do that we just did.
When Eric and I first started talking about doing Ironman Arizona, he just talked about finishing. And I knew, having worked with Eric before, that he would do much more than just finish the race. So analyzing all of his workouts, I told him I thought he could do around 13 hours, and he did. He exceeded my expectations, and he finished in 12 hours, 38 minutes, and 51 seconds.
And I walked out to greet my family, and I remember the first thing I was asking them is, what was my time? And that's when I heard Miriam say, 12, 12 something. And I was like, what did you say? It was sub 13? And she was like, yeah, 12, 38, 51 or whatever it was. And I was just like, I didn't know what to say. Like, I was just so torn, because here, I didn't even think I could do this thing. And then to think, okay, maybe 14 hours, but then to think maybe by the luck of God, 13 hours, and then to come in at 12:38, I was just blown away. And so I gave some hugs and kisses. My mom was there, and my stepdad, and sat down, and I was, got some food in me, and everything kind of slowed down, and just trying to soak it in. And I was getting, some text messages from my family members and some friends congratulating me, and it was just overwhelming, feeling. And at that point, I didn't know if we were going to go out partying or what, but at that point, my mission was done. So we pretty much packed up and made our way back to the car so we can get back to the hotel to wrap up the day of our November 19th, 2023 Ironman Arizona, a day that I'll never forget.